Hi kiddos, welcome back to the Poudre Library's virtual makerspace. Today's project is a catapult. So we are going to be making just a very simple catapult design. And for your supplies today, you are going to need some popsicle sticks. I would recommend having maybe about 10 to 15 of these. And for your popsicle sticks, you want these to be the extra wide popsicle sticks, not the skinny ones that you typically find in the craft stores. So try to make sure you're getting extra wide and a little bit longer. We also are going to be using lots and lots of rubber band, and there's a good chance we may have a rubber band or two snap as we're putting together our catapult, so just be aware of that and be careful about that. Of course, we're also going to have our pom-poms. We need something to launch off of our catapult. An alternative you can do for pom-poms are marshmallows, if you happen to have any laying around your house. And then this last item, totally optional, but a little extra fun to add on to the end of your catapult. This is just a little serving spoon, like you might find at an ice cream shop or a frozen yogurt shop. If you wanted to substitute a large spoon, a full-size spoon, you could do that as well. All right, well, let's get started with our construction. We're going to start off with a stack of popsicle sticks. And you can do any number that you like. I think I'm going to start off with maybe about 6. Yep, I have 6 in my stack, so that looks good to me. Again, this number of sticks is totally optional. You can start off with 2. You can even go higher if you want to try 9 or 10. These sticks are going to form the fulcrum for our catapult. This is part of the design process, is just experimenting with different designs, different heights, and seeing how it all works together. I'm going to take my stack of popsicle sticks, I'm going to add on a rubber band. I'm going to start banding our fulcrum together. I'm going to try and keep it pretty snug without snapping your rubber band. And you'll notice that when I was doing this, I did not put the rubber band in the center of the popsicle stick. And there is a reason for that. We are going to be adding more popsicle sticks here in the middle, so I want to keep that part clear. That's why I have my rubber band here towards the end of my stack of sticks. And now that I have this first end done, I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to add another rubber band at the other end. There we go. Okay, so there is our fulcrum. It looks pretty secure to me. Those rubber bands feel pretty snug, and I think it's going to stay together pretty well. I think our fulcrum is in good shape. Our next step, we're going to take 2 popsicle sticks, and we're going to lay one on each side of our fulcrum, right here in the middle of the fulcrum. And I like to use my thumb, keep it all in place. I'm going to rotate this around so you can see what it looks like. It basically looks like a big plus sign, doesn't it? Right? We have our vertical popsicle sticks, and then we have our fulcrum on the horizontal. And what we're going to do is we're going to press the bottom of these 2 sticks together, and we're going to rubber band them right there. Now this is a little bit tricky because as you're doing this, you want to make sure that your thumb is staying here and keeping the fulcrum in between. And it's going to want to slide around, so you're going to have to use a little bit of hand strength and a little bit of coordination to keep everything in place here. I'm going to take my rubber band and I'm going to start securing here at the bottom. And you can see already my fulcrum is starting to slide a little bit. It wants to slide up and out as I do this rubber band. But just do your best to try and keep the pressure on that fulcrum so it stays in place. I've got my rubber band on the bottom there. Still got my fulcrum. And I'm gonna turn this to the side so you can see what it's like. It basically forms a big V, right? There's our V, and here's our fulcrum in the middle, and here's our rubber bands at the end. You may need to adjust it just a little bit, make sure everything stays put. And I'm still keeping some force here on our fulcrum so that it stays in place and it doesn't slide out. Keep this fulcrum in the middle. What we're going to do is we're going to add a rubber band here. And the way we're going to do that is when we rubber band it, we're going to rubber band on the bottom and on the side and on the other side. But the one place we're not going to rubber band it is on the top. So we don't want a rubber band going across that big V. Let me go ahead and do my first band so you can see how that works, and then you can follow along with your catapult at home. So here's my rubber band. I'm going to start off on the bottom. And I'm going to turn my rubber band around, and then I'm going to go around the side. I'm going to turn my rubber band around, and I'm going to go around the other side, and I'm going to turn my rubber band around and go around the bottom, and then go around the other side. All right, kiddos. It was probably a little bit hard to see on the camera, but as I was rubber banding, I started here on the bottom, and then I rubber banded on the side, and then I rubber banded on this side. And at no point did I rubber band the top. So why don't you give that a try? I would recommend actually doing at least 2 rubber bands here, just to make sure it's extra secure. I'm going to go ahead and add my second band. Again, I'm going to start on the bottom and turn across my band. Do it on the side, cross my band. Do it on the other side, cross my band, and then do it on the bottom. This is what your catapult should be looking like at this point. You'll see when I turn it to the side, it still has that nice V right there. Our next step is we're going to add our handy dandy spoon. And again, we're just going to take a rubber band and we're going to place our spoon on the top popsicle stick, just like that. And then we're going to take our rubber band and we're going to rubber band it on. And this rubber band is huge. There we go. All right, we have our spoon attached. And it looks to me like our catapult is ready to test. I'm just going to make sure all of my rubber bands here are secure. Everything's in place. It's looking pretty good to me. I have my pom-poms ready to launch, so I'm going to try it out and see what happens. I'm going to show you another option you can consider with your catapult. Now, one of the cool things about catapults is they're operating through a tool called a lever. And this right here is the lever. Just like this is the fulcrum, right? And this is the lever. And the interesting thing is, the longer your lever is, the further you can move your load. Let's see if we can extend our lever by adding another popsicle stick. I loosely wrapped a rubber band on one end, and then I'm going to see if I can slide my popsicle stick underneath here. Just like that. Now it looks like our lever is much longer. So I'm going to go ahead and add my spoon back on. There we go. All right, should we try testing it? Let's see what happens. I looked around the office and I found a few things. I found a highlighter and I found a big spoon, and I'm going to take a rubber band and I'm just going to add our spoon to our highlighter, because I think this highlighter would make a good fulcrum. So let me try that and we will see what happens today, and if maybe just a highlighter and a spoon and a rubber band can create a mini catapult. Well, let's see here. There we go. I banded them together. That was pretty quick and easy. Should we test it out? Let's see what happens. All right, I'm going to load up my new catapult with a pom-pom. And now I'm going to apply some effort to the end of the catapult, and we will see what happens to the pom-pom. Perfect. There we go. And then when we're applying our effort to the catapult, on this one we apply the effort right here, versus on this one we apply the effort here. It takes a different amount of work for one catapult versus the other catapult. Tell us a little bit more about how our catapult is working. This book is written by Alex Brinded and it's published by Kid Haven Publishing. This is one of the fabulous books here in the children's section at Old Town Library. And you can see in the table of contents there are all kinds of cool machines that this book talks about. It talks about pulleys and cranes and conveyor belts. And right now what we are learning about with our catapult is levers. So I'm going to go to page 16. Here's a pulley. There's a conveyor belt. And here is information about levers. Levers are a tool that we use to make a job easier. And they have a pivot and a rod. And when the pivot is fixed and doesn't move, the rod is moving the object. A wheelbarrow is actually an example of a lever. We have a pivot point down here with the front wheel. And when you lift up the handles, the wheel stays on the ground and it helps you move something that's heavier than you could have moved otherwise. Now, a seesaw is a perfect example of a lever. because the seesaw is always balancing off of this center fulcrum or pivot point. So that's a great example of a way to learn about levers. You can see we also use levers for really practical things, like when we're barbecuing. Out on our grills, we use tongs, and tongs are an example of levers. Even scissors. I'm sure you use scissors all the time at school and at home. Scissors are an example of a pivot point there in the middle and a lever. This is the kids' book of simple machines, cool projects and activities that make science fun. It's written by Kelly Dubna. Let's take a peek in here and see what it tells us about levers. Wow, do you see that picture there? There is an old-timey catapult. Look at the construction on that one. I bet you could toss a lot over in that catapult. So this chapter is also talking all about the power of levers. This catapult was used in medieval times. This catapult has a fulcrum, and it places the lever on the fulcrum just like we did with our catapult. And the interesting thing about a lever is the longer it is, the easier it is to move whatever you have loaded. All right, kiddos, well, here are 3 examples of levers and fulcrums. This explains to us exactly how the fulcrum works with the load. And you can see there are 3 different models here. And in each one, there's a fulcrum on the bottom, but the fulcrum is in different positions. And then the load also moves in different positions. If you look at our catapult and you guess which model here fits our catapult, I want you to look here at this bottom example. Do you see how the fulcrum here is off to the side? Well, that is just like our catapult, right? There we have our fulcrum off to the side. Do you see how the payload, or the load, is right here at the end? That is just like the catapult that we built that has the spoon on the far end. And look where we need to apply our effort. Our effort is actually our finger that's pressing down on the catapult. This book talks about all the different examples. So that first class lever, an example of that would be a seesaw. So on a seesaw, you have your fulcrum here in the middle. Then you have a load on one end, and you have to apply some effort on the other end to make the seesaw go up and down. And then a second class lever, an example of that would be a door hinge. Third class lever, an example of that would actually be a baseball bat acting on a baseball. So lots of real life examples about how levers are used. Here's some other examples. You see the wheelbarrow again. You see people who are laying concrete, they use lots of tools that rely on levers, things like hammers, rakes, hockey sticks, staplers, all kinds of tools in our world that operate through the force of levers. And then, of course, even scissors. So this book has some other ideas on experiments and projects you can do to learn more about levers. I encourage you to check it out and try some of these different activities.